Are you washed in the blood? Number 50 will be our song of invitation in just a few minutes. Now, a few minutes ago, I spoke about Zephaniah, God's prophet of doom. I mean, that's just the best way to refer to him, as the prophet of doom. One of the texts I pointed out at the beginning was Revelation 14 and verse 5. And in their mouth was found no deceit, for they are without fault before the throne of God. The first part of this, as I noted before, seems to be taken from Zephaniah chapter 3 and verse 13, the only quotation from Zephaniah in the New Testament, as far as we know. After discussing the dismal moral and spiritual character of Judah that was so deserving of God's judgment, the prophet turned now to discuss the moral and spiritual character of the future remnant who would be faithful to God, pleasing to God. John, in the Apocalypse, in the book of Revelation, in his use of Zephaniah chapter 3 and verse 13, was describing the characteristics of those who are rewarded with heaven. Those who we read in verse 4, Revelation 14, verse 4, who follow the Lamb wherever he goes, they are without fault before the throne of God. Now, those who are faithful to the Lord are going to be rewarded with heaven. But this description in Revelation chapter 14 of those who have pure language and pure speech, who follow the Lamb wherever he goes, they are without fault before the throne of God. He's not talking about being in heaven. He's talking about those of us who live our lives before the throne of God, here in this world, in Revelation 4 and 5. Although what we are seeing there in that picture is heaven and all the angels around about the throne and all of that. But there are other things, creatures around the throne as well. And there are creatures that we see here upon this earth. We are living before the throne of God right now. We are living before that throne even as we speak. Who follow the Lamb wherever he goes. That's a description of men and women in this world who follow the Lamb wherever he goes. And they are without fault before the throne of God. Well, that's where I want to be. And that's where you want to be, I know. And so let's turn away from the sins that brings the Lord's judgment upon us. And let's turn to the Lord in his grace and mercy and love. He beckons us. He pleads for us. He gave his son to die for us. Are you washed in the blood? Are you washed in the blood of Christ? Turn back to Christ, the Lamb of God who takes away all of your sin, as we stand and sing this invitation hymn.